All night, the crews have been organizing to put this car through the sound barrier, better than 740 miles per hour, at the one place where they are most used to ultimate speed. We have been to Tonopah, Nevada. We've been to Bonneville, Utah. But now we are here on the Rogers Dry Lake, looking for Mach 1 on land. If the beaches of Daytona and Ormond are the birthplace of speed, then here at Rogers Dry Lake at Edwards Air Force Base, this is the birthplace of supersonic speed. And for the first time, a man is attempting to go supersonic in a land vehicle. Stan Barrett attempting the effort here. He is about to get in the automobile to try for that magic mark here on land, better than 740 miles per hour. The car is being fueled with hydrogen peroxide right now. A heater is still attached to the machine. There you see the pre-stage area about a mile away, and there's the telemetry room. Joe Sargent calibrating his equipment. There's the U.S. Air Force radar room, which will be tracking the rocket car. And there's the seat awaiting Stan Barrett. The count is continuing here at Edwards Air Force Base. It was just 3 months ago in this same vehicle that Stan Barrett made a run at Bonneville, which made him the fastest man on Earth at some 638 miles per hour. Utah's Bonneville Salt Flats have been the home of ultimate speed since the 30s and the days of the Mormon meteor Ab Jenkins and Sir Malcolm Campbell.
Ignition.
When Bill Fredericks counted off this September 1979 run for Stan Barrett, it was expected that this would be a step toward Mach 1 speed of sound on land. Indeed, it was a tremendous run. Stanley Barrett here exceeding 638 miles per hour on a one-way run toward the sound barrier. But barriers are hard to reach, and at Bonneville there were difficulties. For a moment, when the calibration of time was given for this run, there was great elation. It seemed like only a quick step from this run to the barrier. But while this scene was taking place, problems were discovered on the track, as Brock Yates reported.
Here on the course, Stan Barrett was traveling at about 500 miles an hour as he approached the traps at about the 2-mile mark. Here, the wheels began to leap off the ground as they drove through this thin layer of salt. Here, the right side wheel has come off the ground for about 40 feet when the car began to tricycle down the racetrack with the wheels alternately leaping off the ground. Designer Bill Fredericks has decided that if this condition prevailed, there's a possibility that the car could be broken in half by the massive physical forces that come to bear under these conditions.
That run at Bonneville was so harrowing, so dangerous, with the wheels skipping over the salt sometimes 90 feet before coming back to the ground, that a new location had to be found. Hence, we are here at the birthplace of supersonic speed, Rogers Dry Lake, Edwards Air Force Base. A strange, mysterious place where heroes are paid by the month for taking the ultimate risks. Men like this man, Captain Chuck Yeager, 1947 in the X-1. Penetrating the sound barrier at 670 miles per hour. And then safely bringing that aircraft back to the bed of Rogers Dry Lake. Men like the man in this X-15, who in the 60s went faster in an aircraft than anyone has ever gone. Pete Knight, 4,500 miles an hour plus. Naturally, where people go for the ultimate limits, they face the ultimate risks. To analyze today's event, we have with us one of World War II's great American fighter pilot aces and the first man to break Mach 1, retired Air Force General Chuck Yeager. Chuck, when you went through the barrier, you went through at 670 miles per hour. Now today they're talking about 734, 35 miles an hour. Why do they have to go so much faster than you did?
Well, here just above sea level, the speed of sound is around 740 miles per hour. Up where I was with the X1 back in 47, the speed of sound was only 660 miles per hour.
Chuck, they're removing the heater from the rocket car. We're getting very close on the countdown. Do you think they can do it?
Well, yeah, it looks good today. They've got the engine peaked up, track's in good shape, and stands ready.
And there you see 36-year-old Bishop, California Hollywood stuntman Stan Barrett arriving back at the pre-stage area. There is no stunt about what he'll be attempting today. And right now, let's take a look at a previous run that put him faster than he had ever gone before. This December 3rd, Stan Barrett on his run that took him to 643 miles per hour. We joined this run as Bill Fredericks, the car designer, was in the countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
Incredible power, Chuck Yeager.
Yeah, Ken, he's smoking along there at a pretty good rate. He's being exposed to about 2 1/4 G's longitudinal acceleration. That means he's picking up somewhere between 55 and 60 miles per hour per second. After he goes through the traps here at the 1.5 mile mark, he comes off the powered purges and his drag chute comes out. After he gets below 200 miles here, he starts applying the brakes and slows down. You know, he keeps chewing away at that old sound barrier.
From 0 to 600 and back in less than a minute. It seems like such a simple problem as you described it there, Chuck Yeager.
May seem that way, but it really isn't. There's an awful lot goes on behind the scenes, Ken.
Project SOS continuing on the countdown toward Mach 1, more shortly. At Rogers Dry Lake, Edwards Air Force Base with General Chuck Yeager, I'm Ken Squire, and they are fueling the rocket car for the assault on the sound barrier by Stan Barrett this day. As the fueling goes on, there is Bill Fredericks, the man who has designed the car.
And here they are cleaning the windshield, Ken, with an alcohol compound so Stan can see through it real good.
There's Hal Needham, fellow who put the project together. He himself, in a program we saw several years ago on CBS, went over 600 miles per hour in a rocket car. Some of the press that's gathered here today, Chuck. Pretty good crowd out.
Oh, looks like we've got a little problem here. Somebody dropped a screw down the compartment. It's going to take a little while to get that bottom panel off to get it out.
This is going to cause a delay in our countdown as the fueling continues on the machine.
Yeah, here's a good view of what Stan sees down the track. Of course, all those people won't be in there.
Earlier, Hal Needham took a few moments to give us an example of how much power this rocket car has.
These drums contained hydrogen peroxide. That's a fuel. It's a fuel that Stanley Barrett is going to use in this rocket car. It holds 138 gallons. That is about 1,500 pounds. It develops 48,000 horsepower. Now, let's see, 48,000 horsepower. Let me break that down a little bit. Your average car has 210 horsepower. An average Indianapolis car has 850 horsepower. There are 33 Indianapolis cars on the grid. In order to equal the power in this rocket car, it would take twice that amount.
Ken, Hal was talking about the maximum amount of thrust he's getting in this thing. Let me explain it real quick, what this hybrid chamber does on that rocket motor. The hydrogen peroxide comes through that catalyst crystal, decomposes, and expands about 1,000 times into steam, and that steam temperature is almost up to 1,200 degrees. Now we come back into this hybrid chamber that's behind the hydrogen peroxide rocket. Now that gas, which is about 1,200 degrees, comes into that chamber and it decomposes this poly composition. And when that 1,200 degree gas hits this poly, it decomposes it from solid to gas instantly and increases that chamber pressure in the hybrid chamber about 50% more, giving us about 50% more thrust. Now, in addition to that, we got that sidewinder sitting up there, and that sidewinder puts out roughly 4,000 pounds of thrust for about 6 seconds. They change a little bit, vary between motors, but that's about what you get. And that's, when we talk about horsepower, man, he's really got it.
There you see Bill Frederick buried right up to the armpit, one of those hybrid engines, and directly above it, the sidewinder.
Ken, that sidewinder is really a heat-seeking missile. What we see here is only the rocket propulsion unit attached to the Sidewinder.
Okay, Chuck, this was the run from December 5th, the first time they have utilized a Sidewinder on a rocket car.
And we're not interested in full thrust, so we took the hybrid engine off. And what he's doing, we put in roughly 7 seconds of fuel, and we'll get about 9,000 pounds of thrust out of the monopropellant unit here.
Just get it rolling enough to find out what happens.
Yeah, well, he'll get it up about 2 seconds into the run, and then he'll fire off the Sidewinder motor itself. And he's heating up the catalyst here by squirting peroxide across it to get it hot enough to get his full thrust out of it.
That Sidewinder is considered the ultimate device to get that rocket car through the sound barrier. This was the test run on December 5th.
Okay, let's count down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition.
Yeah, look at the fire coming out of that thing. He's getting about 4,000 pounds of thrust out of that Sidewinder for about 6 seconds. And I've fired a lot of Sidewinders off of aircraft, and when you pull the trigger, those things really come out from under your wing. Now, after old Stan punched the button on that Sidewinder rocket motor, man, it hit him, and it hit him hard. And then I'll tell you, he was quite surprised because that's instant thrust. It's a little more than he was used to.
I don't know, I was so surprised that it hit me so hard.
Yeah, you're breaking up on that radio.
You know, you get a lot of acceleration, period, then you hit that thing and it like triple. Yeah, it was just incredible.
Stan Barrett confided with Chuck Yeager after that Sidewinder ride. Earlier, he had talked with me about the stress that time and waiting has put upon not only him, but his family.
We originally had thought about doing this thing. I expected it to be over in 2 weeks. Sure. And I'm not sure if I would have known that it was going to drag out like it has, that I would have been willing to put them through what they've gone through. You know, there's been a lot of tedious moments and a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress, and you can see it in the kids.
As the barrier gets stiffer, the speeds faster. Does it become harder or easier to climb back in and encapsulate yourself in it?
Each run is different. I think the faster I go, in a respect, the more confident I become, because I'm just that much higher on the curve. Because each time we have a problem or each run, I mean, I just see more and more the commitment of the people around here, and Bill Frederick, and I mean, he's doing everything possible to make that car, you know, just right. And Hal Needham has been, you know, I can't say enough. And to see the people, the way that they're working on the car and the support we're getting, and on the track, the support from the Air Force, and just everybody's caring and so on. That helps to fortify me and my family.
What worries you most, Stan?
The thing that worries me most is that I would be, if something happened to me, I wouldn't be carrying through with the responsibilities that I have and the commitment I feel towards my family.
An earlier interview with Stan Barrett. Right now, the car is back on the count toward our run for the sound barrier today. For the moment, as we await Stan Barrett to climb into that cockpit, let's go back to another run in the progression toward the barrier. This was the run that brought Stan Barrett to 677 miles per hour. And he told us about this run himself.
I really didn't feel that good when I got in the car that morning.
In this discipline, there is no room for personal feelings. Stan had told me earlier that when the rocket car takes off, in his words, it's a whole lot of gone in a hurry. But for this ride, a ride faster than anyone has taken over the face of the earth before, the car was particularly difficult, cantankerous.
The car started jerking around and hit me, and I told Bill what was going on, and he said, "Don't worry about it." He said, "It's no problem." It was a valve that was leaking in there, and we didn't even do a burnouts at all. But so right from the start, it was like a It was like a racehorse trying to get out of the gate.
All the gauges are really jumping around in here, Bill. Okay now, Stan. Okay. Don't worry about it.
We have a little bitty, just a tad of a delay now, and that's always kind of exciting.
3, 2, 1, go!
Awesome power. To the half-mile marker. To the mile. Mile and a half. To the traps at the 2-mile mark. The metal wheels revolving at some 9,000 revolutions per minute, turning Stanley Barrett into a human vibrator.
Right from the start, that thing was just, I mean, it was unbelievable, the acceleration. And we got to going so fast that I don't know whether it's the speed or vibration transmitted from the lake bed into my back of my helmet, which is that I'm healthy on the suspension on my helmet. But it got to where the flags were dancing all over, and I really couldn't tell where I was in the course. That bothered me, and I couldn't see where to let off.
It's pulling me around a little bit, though. I'm at the 5-mile marker, and I'm slowing down.
5 miles never went faster on land. Now we're just about set. The rocket car is in position. It is tied down. Sidewinder is on board. The Air Force tracking station with its radar ready to follow the exploits of Stan Barrett today. And the safety equipment is being moved to its position. We'll be back later. Thank you, Dick Stockton. We are here at the Edwards Air Force Base on the Rogers Dry Lake, 12 minutes and counting to the effort by Stan Barrett in Hal Needham and Bill Frederick's rocket car to put a resounding exclamation mark to this decade as he attempts to go SOS, the speed of sound, Mach 1, in a land vehicle for the first time. The rocket car is just about set. Stan Barrett ready to leave his motor home back at the pre-stage area. There you see him coming out now. There's his wife, the former Olympic skier, Penny McCoy. Here's the telemetry room. There you see Joe Sargent, who will be reading out the progression here. And there is Ray Van Aken, who's been on the project now for 7 years. A very confident looking Stan Barrett moving to the line. What does he face? Well, earlier, Chuck Yeager ran us through the course that Stan Barrett faces.
We'll start out at the 0-mile marker, and he accelerates. And as he approaches the 1-mile marker, he's already up to roughly 500 miles per hour. And he then, 6 seconds short of the traps here at the 2-mile marker, he fires his Sidewinder motor. And at the 2-mile marker, he's hit his maximum speed, hopefully at the speed of sound. And at this point, his Sidewinder quits and his hybrid engine quits. And Stan then pushes down on the rear of the pedal on the floor, and 1.8 seconds, his chute deploys. And in that 1.8 seconds, he's covered better than 2,000 feet, or a little less than a half a mile. Then he begins decelerating. And by the time he goes through the 4-mile marker, he's down to below 400 miles per hour. And then as he goes through the 5-mile marker, he's down below 300 miles an hour. And then as he hits the 6-mile marker, he's down below 100 miles an hour, and he starts putting on his brakes. And he stops somewhere between 6.5 and 7 miles.
That's the challenge to be faced by Stan Barrett, being driven to the start line by his father-in-law, David McCoy of Bishop, California, right now. The temperature has moved to 37 degrees, bringing the barrier to 750 miles per hour today. There you see U.S. Air Force radar tracking. They'll be following the exploits today of the rocket car. They have 3 ways of measuring speed: from the radar, from the telemetry on board the vehicle, and from trap speed. There's Penny McCoy Barrett back in the pre-stage area with her children. Looks like they're in the rocketry game out there, Chuck Yeager.
Yeah, Ken, the boys know an awful lot about rocket cars and airplanes.
Their dad is now at the start line, the 0-mile marker for this run. Climbing out of the van, and with him is his brother Jerry from St. Louis. getting ready for this run. Going to be a tough one as it's really warmed up here on Rogers Dry Lake. There is Colonel Pete Knight, the man who broke 4,500 miles per hour right up over this Rogers Dry Lake. Stan Barrett, his challenge, 750 miles per hour. Can he do it? Penny McCoy Barrett here. She and her family have had to face some real issues about this enterprise, and earlier she talked to us about them.
Well, I think the reality in this is probably that the danger and the risk involved, and you know, the possibility of facing death and what would occur after it as far as we're concerned, Daddy's concerned, what it takes, the dedication, the discipline to reach some goal such as this. And they've all been quite involved in that, and I think they've learned a lot from that.
Penny McCoy Barrett. No one exemplifies the strength, the commitment to this challenge as much as she does. There's Stan Barrett's close friend, Hal Needham, the man who has brought this whole program together. Earlier, we asked Hal why he put up this effort.
Oh, I suppose you'd say it was 1976 when I drove a similar car to this, and at that time it was all fun and games. Since then, my relationship with Fredericks and Stan, it's really become an obsession with me, see that they fulfill their dreams.
A nightmare for most, but for these people it is a dream. For Stan Barrett, Hal Needham, for the designer builder, Bill Frederick. Here is Stan Barrett about to climb into this rocket car, hybrid engine, as well as the Sidewinder motor to push him hopefully toward the barrier. A very collected, a very nice guy, this Stan Barrett, huh, Chuck Yeager?
Yeah, he's very dedicated.
The entire crew is very dedicated. There is Bill Frederick talking with one of the youngsters, Mark Schuster, and it's a very young crew, but they've all put their hours in on this one, working through the nights many times to get this machine ready. And now, Stan Barrett about to take the cockpit, corkscrewing himself in.
I think that this is get easier.
Actually, it is getting easier, Chuck. It used to take 10 or 15 minutes, and he's sliding in here with relative ease. Down into the cockpit. A 13-point safety system will not only secure him, but make Stan Barrett a part of the fabric of this machine. There's a lot of instrumentation for him to deal with. Earlier, Chuck Yeager clambered on board this same machine, took a look at this instrumentation, and pointed out to us the key devices to fire this rocket car. This is what Chuck had to tell us.
When switch 4 is activated, that lets fuel back to the manual control valve. That when Stanley pushes the throttle down and actuates a switch, that lets the fuel directly into the rocket motor itself. Okay, his last remaining thing then is pressurize his fuel tank by turning this green dome letter down here to the right and cranking the pressure up to about 500 psi. There it is. The next thing you'll hear is Stanley's countdown, 10 down to 1.
We're going to be hearing that countdown in just a little over 4 minutes. Right now, in the procedure, we are at a very special moment. Stan Barrett usually shares a moment with the people back at the base camp, with the people here on the start line.
Stan, would you pray for us, please? Sure will, Bill. Our gracious God and Heavenly Father, I thank you for this another day, and I just ask that you would watch over and care for my family, strengthen them, be with Bill's family and all the people that are supporting us. Thank you for their prayers, Lord, and thank you that you hear them. I just pray now for a successful run, and that you may get the glory for this, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay.
Stan Barrett is now locked in the rocket car. Safety equipment is moving to its position, and in less than 4 minutes, we will have an attack on the sounder.
Activation safety 1, T-2 and counting.
Less than 2 minutes to blast off for Stan Barrett in the rocket car of Bill Frederick and Hal Needham. There is Bill Frederick, and we are down to the serious time as they prepare to arm the rocket car. Penny McCoy Barrett, a mile and a half away in the pre-stage area.
Okay, activate switch number 8, main power.
Switch number 8.
Okay, he's connecting the
Activated,
battery
green light
up to
on.
the vehicle.
Okay, activate switch number 5, high pressure.
Switch number 5 activated.
Okay, he's letting the nitrogen
Okay,
gas
activate
into the
switch number
valves.
18.
Switch number 18, 1001.
Okay, that's his drogue chute slug. He needs that.
1,620 pounds.
Roger, thank you. Activate switch number 0.
That's activated.
Minute and a half.
You know the names of them now. Okay, activate switch number 20, fuel line purge.
Switch number 20 activated.
He's purging out the gas from the valve.
Okay, terminate radio contact till after the run. Activate switch number 4, rocket arming valve.
Rocket arming valve activated.
Activate sidewinder arming switch to on position. Pull forward, red light on.
Pull forward, 2 clicks, red light on.
Armed and triggered.
T-1 right now. Kirk, where are you? 1 and counting, and the flare is up.
Notice to the onlookers, we're in the last
Did
minute.
you see that, Stan? That was spectacular.
What's that?
Shot a flare out.
Stanley's not impressed with the
Okay,
pyrotechnics.
turn the dome loader slowly until you get to 540. Go slow the last 40 pounds.
All right.
You know, 540 pounds, that's the highest we've ever loaded that hydrogen peroxide tank.
110.
Telemetry room, double checking.
200. Check 200.
There's the camera 4 miles away.
250.
Back to the start line.
300.
U.S. Air Force radar checking the run.
350.
Pre-stage area.
Check 400.
A very tense audience.
Roger.
450.
You notice the fairing he has around the sidewinder rocket motor there to cut down drag.
490. 5.
Don't you know that tank is really straining there?
And he's sitting on it.
530. Should be 540 right there.
What do you got, Joe?
About 560 here.
Good, thank you. Now we're going to do burn out here. Activate switch number 7 and follow me. Hey, Ireland?
Okay, there's the plug blowing out the motor that protects it from the
let's go. We're
dust.
just going to let it cook slowly this time so we have as much fuel as we can.
You know, Bill Frederick had an uncanny ability to listen to that motor and tell when it's exactly ready to go.
Okay, she's cooking now. Let's let it cook for a minute.
And she's talking back.
Talking back, says Stan Barrett. That monster she's about to attempt to ride.
Okay, give me another one.
Sounds pretty good.
Eddie Towers, safety 1. You might want to notify the command post it's about to go. They want to put it under closed circuit.
Sounds upset.
Stan Barrett says the rocket sounds upset.
Okay, give me another one. Okay, she's heating up now. We're going to do one more little bitty one in a second. Okay, give me a little bitty. She's ready, Stan.
All right.
Okay, we're going to do a countdown.
Sound barrier out there at over 700 miles per hour.
Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
I got her all the way to 4.
Pull it up and hit it again.
Seem to have a problem here. Problem or not, he is underway. From our camera located at the 4.5 mile marker, Stan Barrett up to 3 miles. If he reaches 700 miles per hour, and he should, he'll be going in excess of 1,000 feet per second. Chute is deployed perfectly. Slowing down at the 4 mile marker. At 4.5 now. Slowing down. There he is, coming to the 5 mile marker. There you see Penny Barrett and her mother. It certainly looks like it's over 700 miles per hour here today. Has it been enough for the barrier?
He hit it about 3 seconds into the burn, didn't he?
No, a little longer than that.
Westbound again.
I am with Hal Needham and the man who first broke the sound barrier, Chuck Yeager, here at the end of the run, where they are extricating Stan Barrett from this successful run. And as we await word from Air Force radar as to the speed, let's here take another look at that start, where seemingly there was a problem as the trigger mechanism failed to fire for just a moment. Let's look again at that start.
4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
A faulty valve creating this dramatic moment.
Got her all the way to 4.
Pull it up and hit it again.
Stan Barrett calmly going through the procedure, away on a run that took him to 714 miles per hour.
Stanley, now that you're over the 700 barrier, how hard's it going to be to get the rest of it?
I really don't know. I guess it's like when you get 500 feet from the top of Mount Everest, you know. It's all climbing, you know. I think that it's all hard.
Watch again as the first land vehicle in history rockets to over 700 miles per hour. But for driver Stan Barrett, owner Hal Needham, builder designer Bill Frederick, the goal is still out there. The sound barrier, Mach 1. Join us next Saturday, the halftime of the East-West game here on the CBS Sports Spectacular for the final chapter in Project SOS, The Speed of Sound. For General Chuck Yeager, I'm Ken Squire, and now back to Dick Stockton. One of the ultimate adventures in speed, that adventure of Stan Barrett to reach Mach 1 SOS is continuing here at Rogers Dry Lake Edwards Air Force Base. That 39-foot rocket car, powered by a hybrid engine as well as a Sidewinder missile, shooting for over 700 miles per hour. This man, Stan Barrett, who in 1979 at Bonneville, Utah, took Hal Needham's car to the fastest mark ever at nearly 640 miles per hour. But at Bonneville, the car shook and bounced over the ground so much in this run that a new place had to be found. That's why we moved to Edwards Air Force Base, the Rogers Dry Lake. Here, the rocket car making the last run prior to the effort you're to see today, assuming a speed of over 700 miles per hour.
Thank you for the good night's rest. All these things we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Stan Barrett in the car. We are in the final moments of countdown. The temperature standing at 20 degrees, which makes the sound barrier 731.9 miles per hour. Kirk Swanson locks him into the car. And we are ready for the final effort in this series to attain the sound barrier with a land vehicle. A bit more than 2 minutes before builder-designer Bill Frederick will give the command to fire off this rocket car and send it on its way. There's the telemetry room. Joe Sargent standing by to read out the speed of the vehicle, hoping to attain 731.9 miles per hour and the barrier. And there you see the rocket car, Barrett encapsulated in the machine now. There's the front metal wheel, which will be turning 9,000 revolutions plus per minute. No tire which could stand it. The power plant at the back, 60,000 horsepower here with that hybrid engine and the Sidewinder. And there's Penny McCoy Barrett with her children back in the pre-stage area, a mile away from the 0-mile marker where the car now rests.
Activate switch number 4, Rocket Army.
Car builder Bill Frederick going down through the checklist for the final time. There's car owner Hal Needham underwriting this project. He's rented the equipment and facilities here at Edwards Air Force Base to put Stan Barrett in the record books. What are Barrett's thoughts at this very moment in that car?
When we get into the countdown is a time that I also say a prayer, and I just say, Lord, into thy hands I commit myself. And usually that's about on the count of 2. When he gets down to 2, that's said, and he says 1, and away I go. And it's you know, although there's some real stress there, that's a time that I really feel close to the Lord. And I mean, I guess when you're putting it all on the line, it's a kind of a special time.
The pitot tube in the nose of the rocket car, the first object to penetrate the sound barrier, Mach 1, if they make it, and then the shock waves will flow down the fuselage and build up here at the cockpit, where there'll be a tremendous beating and buffeting for Barrett in that 20 inches wide, 39-inch area for the driver. No one knows what will happen when they hit Mach 1.
T-1.
The flare gun indicating 1 minute in the count to blast off.
Okay, Stan, we're going to do some burnouts.
All right.
Switch number 7, give me a little one.
This is it. There you see the hybrid engine coming alive, the Sidewinder just above it, 60,000 horsepower in this one final thrust for the barrier. Air Force radar will be checking this run, but after this one, it'll be back to the drawing board if they do not succeed. A quick look at the course Barrett will cover today from the 0 to the 1 mile marker in about 10 seconds, going 500 miles per hour, then hits the Sidewinder 3 seconds later, and at the 2 mile mark should be going Mach 1. A half mile later, 1 and 8/10 seconds, he hits his chute and hopefully begins to slow down. There is General Chuck Yeager, the first man to go through the barrier back in 1947. We may be on the brink of a personal as well as a scientific and engineering achievement. Let's pick up the count.
Here we go, Stan. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
Perfect start. Stan Barrett roars toward the mile marker. Hits the Sidewinder. Heading for the 2 mile marker. We have seen this vehicle make some 18 runs, but none so flawless as this. The reaction of 37-year-old Bishop, California's Stan Barrett. One word for it, wow. Slowing down in the 4 mile area. Talk about whipping, rolling resistance. What a phenomenal run for car builder Bill Frederick. And right here, car owner Hal Needham going down to the 6 mile marker where the car has come to rest. There you see the crew picking up the chute. Stan Barrett still in the machine here at Rogers Dry Lake Edwards Air Force Base. It looks like history has been made. We're waiting for the story. Let's look again and replay. From Air Force radar, watch as 12,000 additional horsepower, 6,000 additional pounds of thrust is triggered by Stanley Barrett with that Sidewinder. Gee. 60,000 horsepower, working for 731.9 miles per hour. Did he make it? Hal Needham on the right, Bill Fredericks on the left, assisting Stan Barrett out of the car.
I'm going to announce what we got so far. We don't have Flanders speed. We ran out of fuel between 200 and 400 feet before the lights. We got 734 on radar, 739 on airspeed. We probably broke the speed of
The dream of Bill Frederick and Hal Needham for years is attained by driver Stan Barrett. And a special salute from one mock buster to another. Hours later, I asked the man who first broke the sound barrier in 1947, General Chuck Yeager, what does all this mean?
I'll tell you what it means, Ken. We've got a stack of data that high that we'll be using for years on this thing going supersonic on the deck. And another thing is, a guy like Bill Fredericks, his dream, he builds this car in his own backyard, financed by a private citizen. We bring it up here at Rogers Dry Lake at Edwards Air Force Base and drive it. And there ain't nowhere else in the world that something like that can take place except here in the good old USA.
For Project SOS, the speed of sound, I'm Ken Squire. And now back to Dick Stockton.